Hello and welcome to the New World Review, your source for everything anime and manga, and that guy was not ready for this. Not ready at all. I thought there was a lot going on in the first half of this arc. Yeah, I didn't finish the intro properly. Deal with it. There's no time for that, because I thought that there was a lot going on during Shibuya, but that was a whole lot of nothing compared to part 2. And in the interest of time, please do feel free to insert your own subscribe joke, as well as your own subscription to the New World Review for regular Jujutsu Kaisen stuff and things. Look, I'm tired. Very tired, but in such a great way. The second half of Shibuya was an overload of just everything. Action, drama, exposition, lore dumping, revelations, and tiny pieces of comedy here and there. And really, even a mere half of this arc might have been a bit too much to read all at once, so all we can do is see how we did. For reference, we are picking up at chapter 110, which is part 28 of the Shibuya incident, already pretty wild. And let's conclude our thoughts on Toji. I really don't think this character could have been implemented any better in this situation. He provides a convincing out for how our character is going to defeat Dagon, a great action spectacle, and really cool interactions with Fushiguro, I suppose I should say Megumi, because we are now dealing with two Fushiguros, or Fushigurai. But I love the anomaly that was Toji's existence, explained by the idea that the old lady's curse technique runs out and reverts when her grandson's energy hits its limit, and the fact that Toji's body consumes no cursed energy basically makes him a permanently existing murder puppet, which I suppose was a really stupid thing to do in retrospect, because with those conditions in mind, or maybe it wasn't, actually. Maybe the idea was that the grandson would just inherit Toji's raw strength and not have the body take command, because who could have predicted that? Certainly nobody who takes a typical view of what the soul is. Doesn't matter though, because what we have here is a sort of Toji redemption, because there is a short flashback that actually makes him out to be something of a considerate father. The whole selling Megumi off because he would be better placed in life elsewhere, and like, I know it's not much, but it's more care than I've been led to believe he had so far. And I do also really like the end of this character, recognizing Megumi and then deciding to kill himself after hearing that he took the Fushiguro name instead of the Zenin name. It was such a sudden but quite beautiful end, which is a statement I could make about a fair few characters in this half of the arc. But we'll get to that, because first up we have much more to discuss with Fushiguro Jr. For a long time I've been wondering why Sukuna has such a keen interest in him. It's a plot point that's been dropped, like at least 3-4 times now? I'm not sure if I've ever bothered to comment on it, because these are more review style videos rather than speculation, but it's becoming pretty damn clear. There was a fun flashback where Gojo essentially implied that the user of the 10 Shadows technique could theoretically rival the user of Limitless and Six Eyes. So Fushiguro 100% holds the potential to become an absurd beast of Gojo quantities, which we have slowly been drip fed throughout the series. Honestly, Fushiguro, not all that impressive in the early arcs of Jujutsu Kaisen, so I do very much praise Akutami for the slow burn revelation of exactly what sort of madness he's capable of, which may or may not have culminated here. The idea that he can summon a whole series of Shikigami at any time, including the alright, okay, let's try and say this. The 8-handled sword divergent Scylla divine general Mahoraga. That thing. Such a mouthful, but it's a pretty scary last-ditch effort technique, coercing an opponent into a ritual with you, and particularly the Mahoraga's ability to adapt to any and all phenomena. Oh, and there was also this beautiful panel where it immediately becomes clear that yes, Megumi is Toji's son, because look at the sheer pleasure at the idea of an opponent being slaughtered alongside him. It's just, it's something, both satisfying and terrifying. Also fascinating to think about, because it's a trait that all three of our first years have. In battle, each of them are capable of exuding what seems to be this chillingly creepy presence. Like Kugisaki fights with a permanent sense of crazed focus, Fushiguro has this in his insane laughter, and Yuji becomes hyper focused on killing, albeit generally only to do with Mahito. But all of our protagonists have this immense darkness with them, which, for want of a better word, is fun. But I'm still wondering if there's more to 10 Shadows than this though, particularly because the Mahoraga has never been tamed. Either way, Fushiguro's potential is even more insane than I thought, and Sukuna going to such extents to keep him alive makes a lot more sense now. Having brought up Sukuna, holy hell, the absolute battle of the arc has to go to Sukuna versus the Mahoraga. Is it Mahoraga or is it Mahoraga? It's probably Mahoraga, and my brain's just kicked into Indian mode. But look, I'm not re-recording it, so we're just gonna have to deal with that. Anyway, the other fights, they were great, lots of nice strategy and techniques, but this was on a whole new level. Watching two out of these world figures do battle is exactly what Dude Face said it was like. Oh god, what's his name? Kusakabe? The guy with the things, the coward, but the funny coward, I like him. Anyway, he equated it to elephants tap dancing on ants. No, actually he didn't. That was Sukuna versus Jogo. Holy crap, my brain. What is wrong with my brain? Shibuya has done some stuff to me. So you know what? Maybe Sukuna versus Jogo was the fight of the arc, actually. That was pretty damn cool as well. But so was anything involving Sukuna. He was captivating because it was great to see him somewhat let loose. And during his entire time of release, Akutami very much made a point of emphasizing just how evil Sukuna actually is, quite literally calling him overwhelmingly evil, which is I think something that very much needed to be done. Sukuna at this point risked becoming a character who is more likable than he is alarming. Like there's a very charming and even comical nature with him in Yuji's body, but during this arc we were well and truly reminded that yes, he is indeed an unimaginable monster. And there was also this kind of great FU moment against Jogo where Sukuna claimed that he wouldn't cheat by revealing what his curse technique is, thus assumedly making it more powerful if he were to do that. Basically handicapping himself because Jogo. what a joke. Except he really isn't. When he's not facing off against Sukuna or Gojo, Jogo is an absolute beast, but he just gets very unlucky with opponents. Anyway, I love the whole Sukuna refusing to reveal his curse technique thing, because that is the entire reason why this mechanic exists, to give Akutami an easy out for explaining curse techniques. That's literally it. It is purely a narrative device. So to see that subverted here creates fun intrigue, and I guess a little bit of smack talk as well, which was pretty brilliant. And Sukuna, man, he's capable of, I don't even know what he's capable of because he didn't reveal it, but it certainly isn't confined to cleaving and dismantling, showing that there is a whole new layer of power out there. Oh, and Malevolent Shrine. It was wonderful to see this domain again, especially being poetically equated to a painter constructing a masterpiece on air rather than on canvas. I love that kind of language. But also this was really devastating because Sukuna just up and murdered everyone within its impressively large radius. And a curious little detail that was dropped here is that apparently one can escape the Malevolent Shrine, which does not apply to other domains, and that is the trade-off for the huge range. So look, that's a very intriguing thing to know for the future. I imagine it may be relevant. And there were just a couple of, I guess, odd moments with Sukuna as well. One of which was this really touching conversation with Jogo right on the verge of death, coming to this understanding, and even Sukuna saying that Jogo, you should be proud and stuff. And am I wrong to question whether or not this actually happened, or if this was like a Yuji style memory implant thing? It was just weird in a good way. Gives me something to think about, and once again throws Sukuna into direct juxtaposition with Gojo, which was already a comparison made by Jogo himself, but Gojo, if I recall, pretty much just pissed all over Jogo, calling him ridiculously weak, and now here's Sukuna doing the opposite, calling him strong in this very comforting way. Then again, I don't know, because Sukuna also pissed all over Jogo during the fight, laying down some verbal smackdown such as, the moonlight's illumination makes it easier to see how pathetic you are. So yeah, I'm left questioning this moment quite a bit. It's so very, very out of place and out of character. Not that we know a lot about Sukuna's character, to be fair, so maybe it isn't. What's also interesting is that Sukuna willingly gave Yuji control of his body again, with Big Bad Demon Daddy having some sort of more long-term plan here. I don't know, it happened, and then more things happened. Many more things, in fact. I feel like I barely touched on anything because I haven't even mentioned Mahito yet, not properly anyway. Just like Sukuna's evil nature was emphasized, Akutami very much went all out with Mahito's grotesque view of life, which makes sense, this was his moment after all. Or was it? Spoilers, it was not. But his story intersects with so many other characters that, forgive me for jumping around a bit here. Tragedy first, yes, Nanami. I hate Mahito, mostly because I love Nanami, and it was such a bitter feeling to see him meet his end, quite literally at the hands of Mahito, especially after having escaped the domain all those arcs ago. After that, Nanami felt quite invincible, or at least that's what I was hoping he would be. So in a sickening way, I do appreciate the decision to kill him, especially with his final words to Yuji. He was a fantastic mentor, and Yuji is going to carry all of that going forward. So rest in peace at your Malaysian beachfront in the sky, good sir. Alright, slight Malaysia-related tangent here. Speaking of Malaysia, we actually see Mei Mei in Malaysia during the sort of conclusion of the arc, because it's also not the conclusion. It's like the point right before the climax. Doesn't matter. How did she get there so quickly? And wasn't she about to fight Ghetto, or I guess not Ghetto at some point? I'll admit, kind of lost with Mei Mei's timeline. So I'm guessing that either she or her brother can teleport as a curse technique. In addition to, what, having sex? That's not a curse technique, but is that what's happening here? There's a lot of very interesting implications in this hotel room scene. Lots of questions questions that arise, many of which probably just better left untouched, you know, just like Wee Wee if you're Mei Mei, because he's underage. Whatever the hell happened here though, it was really jarring and it took me out of the action-packed climax that was happening around it. Much like how it just completely derailed this review actually. But what happened with Mei Mei? If I've missed something, please do point it out. I don't quite understand why she's there, don't quite understand at all. And look, I'll even read the comments if you do have a satisfying answer, given how close I am to finishing the series. But while we're on things like that, there was not just one, but two, quote, special chapters during the Shibuya arc, both of which came at wonderfully inappropriate times, just as we were about to settle things. And I'm guessing Akutami was under an exceptional amount of pressure at this point, missing deadlines and such, and as a result, he had to pump out these short chapters with big panels. You know, very low production value stuff. And yes, they were fun to read because the characters of Jujutsu Kaisen are just fun in general. It's just that they came at the worst possible time, right when Yuji versus Mahito was about to end. Now, Mahito, that's where I started, that's what I was talking about. Like I said, his part in the arc intersects with just about everyone, and another huge factor would be Kugisaki, because damn was she glorious during this arc. I love the way that she handed Mahito's ass to him with resonance, and it very much highlights what I love about power systems like this, because one matchup of weird abilities, that can really be the end of you, and she was glorious right up until the end, I suppose. Now that was a shock. A character like Nanami, yeah sure, I can expect him to die. He's a mentor figure after all, and mentor figures are practically cursed to die. But Kugisaki, man, she's the next generation. Her death pretty seriously rocked me to my core, and it was such a magnificent way for her to go out with her last words and everything. I am sad, shocked, but satisfied. Now with that said, please let her stay dead. Might sound like a harsh thing to say, but this was such a brilliant moment. Do not undercut it by having some dude state that, look, her chances of being alive aren't 0%, maybe. That just gives me the worst sinking feeling in the world, and if this was most other shonen series, I would take that as practically a guarantee that she will survive. I guess the thing about Jujutsu Kaisen is that Akutami does handle death and resurrection even pretty well, like the Toji example, so if Kugisaki does come back into the story, then I'm willing to think that there's a satisfying and hopefully costly way to do so, but please no outright resurrections, I beg of you. Back to Mahito though, actually no, let's talk about Yuji. He reaches a thorough breaking point during Shibuya, one that I thought would be taking him to a very dark place. However, luckily he happens to have a supportive older brother, and Todo does make his glorious presence known. I was wondering where he was during the first half, but he is used to absolute perfection here. He's such a good foil for Mahito and a great supporting presence for Yuji, and there were just too many great Todo moments in his short tenure to name here. It would be a very long list. But my favorite is undoubtedly when he pulled the old clap trick right at the end, claiming that applause is the accumulation of the soul, distracting Mahito and allowing Yuji to do the thing. And all I'm going to say is at this moment, it was very Isaac Netero, no spoilers from Hunter x Hunter, but very similar vibes. And yet Todo absolutely makes this fight. It's a great escalation of when he and Yuji took on Hanami, and just super satisfying to read. But to actually discuss Mahito, I've left him to the end because I'm honestly kind of underwhelmed by him, and in retrospect, that was probably the point. The thing I disliked most was his final form, because final forms always look like garbage, and he is no exception. We abandoned his cool patchwork design to assume this really sort of standard curse thing, which had absolutely no character about it whatsoever, and at that point it might as well have been Yuji fighting any miscellaneous super special curse dude. Because really the crowning feature of Mahito is his emotion and facial expression. Sort of like how I said at least 50% of Gojo's character is purely in his hands, well the same applies to Mahito but with his face. So once you take away that face and replace it with this fleshy wall with a sort of mouth, he just became insanely boring. And that state, it was a really pitiful climax to what had been such a compelling character. And once again, yeah, that may very well be intentional, because the big revelation at the end of this arc is that yes, Mahito was more or less meaningless. He was essentially a delicious snack. He was there to be grown like livestock and then consumed by the Ghetto. Okay, Ghetto, not Ghetto Noritoshi Kamo, not him either though. I don't know, he has many names apparently. This is where the bombardment of information was really taken to the extreme. So firstly, I do love the idea that this entire saga of Jujutsu Kaisen has been a mere portion of some sort of grander plan to do with the Ghetto figure. He certainly did Aizen the hell out of this story. And these last few chapters just seeded so much insane crap. Like that little moment of cutting to Sumiki with the stuff on her head, saying stuff like all cursed objects have now been unsealed, and a wild revelatory statement like what, adjusting brains? Is that what he did? Adjusting brains for sorcery? And vessel strength and all sorts of madness. Not even going to pretend that I've taken everything in because Ghetto said a lot of things. I'm definitely gonna have to go back on it. All I know is that allegedly we are returning to the world of Heian. There's a maximum Uzumaki, and the golden age of cursed techniques is upon us. And very frustratingly, this is where the arc seems to officially end. So I legitimately have no idea where we're going from here. What I do know is that this arc was a very bitter defeat. After all of this, we didn't save Gojo, we lost very lovable characters like Nanami, Kugisaki, Mekamaru actually, he had a very touching goodbye. And did we ever find out what happened to Maki and Nobito? Didn't they get like the crap burnt out of them too? The villains we thought we were fighting were not really the villains. Like, I did feel for the Nature Cursed Spirit gang. They were pricks. More specifically, Jogo was a prick, but they weren't evil at heart. And now the world has been immeasurably ruined by a big bad, actually evil dude. And all I can say is that thankfully, at least we still have Panda, so there is some hope here. I mean, I haven't even spoken about Choso either. To be fair, he didn't really do anything unexpected. I'm very happy to have him as what I think is an ally now, but he's cool, and so that's that. And also, there's probably a million other things I haven't mentioned either, because this is a review, remember, not an analysis, but Shibuya, utter insanity. This arc simultaneously paid everything off that was set up for it, as well as set up an incredible amount to come after it. The story, the interactions, the combat, all of it was fascinating, and Jujutsu Kaisen deserves all of the accumulation of soul-based applause for pulling off its first major narrative climax. But that pretty much does it for this blind review of Jujutsu Kaisen Shibuya Incident Arc. And what do you guys think? Please do leave your thoughts in the comments below, or even join my Discord server. And if you're keen for some more Jujutsu sorcery, then please do check out some of my other videos, or even subscribe to the channel for very maybe regular Jujutsu Kaisen morbidity delivered straight into your YouTube feed. But for now, this has been the New World Review, and I'm going to go and lie down.